lovely little gemstones, it's Afira, and today I'll be reading Self-Love, Chapter 9, by Parallel Monsoon. Chapter 9, Janus, Part 2. I know what you're doing. Janus doesn't have the common decency to look remotely curious or unsettled. Oh, I highly doubt that, he says. But go off, I suppose. He invites Thomas to continue with a sweep of the glove. Thomas sighs and lets his folded arms drop back down to his sides. Okay, he admits. I don't know what you're doing, but I know what you did. He rubs the back of his head, feeling a little sheepish and a whole lot irritated. 10 seconds in, and already he's lost control of the conversation. It just sounded better that way. Gotta bring it around, you know? Janus hums low in agreement. Oh, certainly. Presentation is everything. He helps himself to the recliner across from Thomas, arranges himself in something between a sprawl and a straight-backed poise. And Thomas isn't even sure how that's possible. So, pray tell, what nefarious act am I to answer for today? Thomas is too busy contemplating the precise angle of Janus's crossed legs, idle curiosity, and not at all, so he can deploy it at Joan's next party, to register the question. When he does, he startles, eyes flicking back to Janus's face. Hey, no. He looks a little closer, past the strangely sophisticated slouch, sees that while Janus's brown eye looks calm, the yellow is narrowed, the pupil drawn tight, sees that the hand that rests so casually on his knee is balled into a fist. Under his gaze, Janus shifts, adjusts capelet, hat, and gloves. Shit. No, Thomas says more firmly. This isn't that. He'd only meant to tease, but he can understand how it must have looked. Thomas standing stern, and of course Janus would have thought himself accused. Thomas drops all pretense and lays out what he knows to be true. You've been helping me help Roman. Once upon a time, a snake came slithering. The snake came bearing knowledge, but a snake is a subtle creature. It whines and it coils and it speaks with forked tongue. Your sides are you, the snake said, so that Thomas might learn that while they are also not, asking him to reflect more deeply on what he owes to the weird and wonderful people who share his singular space in the world. Consider the snake said, so that Thomas might also come to consider the prince. Thomas was an unoriginal child. Without meaning to, he trapped Roman unchanging, because the heroes of his childhood were always perfect from the start. We change when you do, the snake said, but only so long as Thomas allows it. He built for Roman a cage of white and never noticed when it started to chafe. He cannot change his foundation. He can change his understanding of the archetypes on which his sides are based. A snake becomes a friend. A prince becomes a man. Grown up, Thomas knows now that heroes falter. They fail. They fall. They rise. Anger needs a purpose, the snake said, and sometimes that purpose is to simply be. Thank you for giving me permission, the snake said, an avalanche of sarcasm. But someone else did need to hear that their heartbreak, their hurts, were justified, needed to be given space to sit with it and know that it was heard. The end result is more interesting, the snake said. Thomas's desire to do good, to be better, wasn't enough. Sometimes pain precedes healing, and sometimes you need to be the one to inflict the hurt. Sometimes you need to push. And finally, he could have been remembered as the hero, but he cracked under the pressure of playing the part, the snake said, because even a subtle creature can get tired of beating around the bush. I'm sure I have no idea what you're talking about. Janus is examining his hidden nails. Janus is looking anywhere but at Thomas. Janus, the liar, is fooling nobody. The only thing I don't understand is why, Thomas says. Why hide it? Janus gives him a look, more pitying than anything, as if Thomas should already know. Let's say that hypothetically you're correct. Given the source, would Roman have been likely to accept any help if he had the slightest suspicion I had a hand in it? Hypothetically speaking. Fair enough, Thomas admits. But you could have told me, without the subterfuge. Would have saved us both a lot of time and bother. Hypothetically speaking, you are remarkably dense, Janus agrees. But Thomas, are you suggesting that you would have lied to Roman? He mimes shock, but there's genuine curiosity in the tilt of his head. Of course not. Just hidden a few facts. Omitted them, you might say. Thomas rubs his forehead, swallows back his groan, if only to break the habit. He seems to groan an awful lot when Janus is around. He clicks his tongue as realization strikes. But I did lie. I knew. You suspected. Janus corrects. Hypothetically speaking. Thomas starts to insist that it's the same, or close enough. But what if he had known? No ambiguity, just the words laid plain straight from the serpent's mouth. He would have wanted to tell Roman, would have felt compelled to make a point of it, all in hopes that Roman would see that Janus, irritating, smug bastard that he is not his enemy. Well meant, of course, done with only the best of intentions. It would have been a disaster. Right now, in this moment, Roman needed to worry about Roman, not about Janus, or what Thomas thought his relationship with Janus ought to be. There would be time for that later. But for now, Roman had given his empty, forced apology, and that would have to be enough. Fair enough, a grumble this time, and Janus' smirk is alive and well. He stands and dips his chin. I'm sure we can appreciate at this point that it is best if this conversation never happened. He pauses. Hypothetically speaking, Thomas finishes. Yeah, I got it. Janus bids him good day, sinks out, and it's a good 5 minutes before Thomas remembers the stack of books waiting patient and a little dusty on the table. Damn it. Really, Thomas? Really. Thomas stares Janus down until he surrenders with a hiss and plops down on the other side of the chessboard. All sprawl, no poise, a silent protest by way of apathy. He rolls his neck slowly to look over at Thomas. I can't help but notice your air conditioner is off, he notes. Thomas is greasy with sweat. He can smell it, his own pit stench like a film on his tongue. I got chilly. He's particularly proud of how flat it sounds, pitch-perfect deadpan. Janus rolls his eyes. Thomas has a blink-fast flashback of orbs skittering across the kitchen tiles. He shakes it off with a shudder and reaches for the board. Same rules. Thomas starts off by moving a familiar pawn. Janus does as well, offering his own up for the taking. Unlike last time, Thomas does not hesitate. What happened between you and Virgil? Janus makes a thick sound low in his chest, exasperation distilled to its purest form. Thomas holds up a hand, waits for Janus to meet his gaze and holds it. No avoidance, no running away, or I will drag you back here kicking and screaming. He takes almost feral pleasure at the way Janus' eyes go wide. End result, Snoperope. We're doing this if it kills us both. It very well might. Thomas doesn't know what the consequences would be if he threw his own self-preservation out a window, but he's getting frustrated enough to find out. Janus looks, if not precisely cowed, then at least vaguely contrite. He straightens himself out, shifting to face Thomas head-on. Do you trust me? He asks. Thomas is going to throttle him. Janus holds up his hand. I swear I have a point. You always have a point, Thomas grouses. Janus has nothing but points. There's no softness to the man, not an ounce of give. Do you trust me? Janus asks again. Part of Thomas wants to cackle wild at the very idea. Part of him wants to insist that Janus has proven himself. Neither response would be the truth. Neither would be a lie. It's complicated, he demurs, and Janus is the one who chuckles low. You're learning, he approves, and Thomas hates himself a little for the warm glow it brings. Let me rephrase. Would you take me at my word? Oh, God, no. Thomas blurts it out, slaps a hand over his own mouth, feeling the blush burn hot against his fingers, lowers it slowly, and this time they laugh together. No, Thomas says again, this time more sedately. We've established I'm kind of dense, but I'm not, completely hopeless. We'll agree to disagree. Janus turns the mockery mild with a smile. It fades, that smile, turns melancholy, and when Janus nods towards the game, Thomas doesn't pressure him to continue. This isn't running, just a pause, a bit of breathing room to gather himself. They exchange pawn for pawn. Janus loses a rook, Thomas a knight. My question, Janus speaks without looking up from the board. What is Virgil to you, Thomas? He's a lot of things, Thomas says. You all are. Yes, we're marvelously complex and multifaceted. But primarily, my anxiety, Thomas says, though it feels almost like a betrayal. He trails off, bites his lip hard enough to sting, feeling his belly curdle and churn as the awful realization hits home. Oh. Indeed, Janus says. It couldn't be helped. We are what we are. Virgil, anxiety, forever second-guessing, ever alert to the threat, real or imagined. Janus, deceit, who can be trusted, perhaps, but never believed. Janus nods to the board again. Thomas moves a pawn out blindly. It was easier when you were younger, Janus says as he shifts his king to one side. Virgil's fears were more concrete. The bullies on the playground would kick over your sandcastle, or Mommy would be disappointed we'd failed a test, that sort of thing. He sighs, abandons the game to lean back, looks at Thomas and lets Thomas look at him, shows himself exposed and burdened, and though his eyes are dry, Thomas can believe for the first time that Janus too knows how to cry. And then you grew up. We learned that sometimes our friends are the bullies. Sometimes they smile to your face and spread rumors behind your back. We learned that sometimes mommies and daddies promise that they'll always love and accept you, and then they don't. There was a reason it had taken Thomas so long to come out. In the end, it had gone better than he could have hoped. He lost some cousins, an uncle, but no one close, no one loved. But the risk was there, and Thomas has seen with his own eyes how dire the consequences could be. Not all of his friends had been so lucky. Virgil learned to fear the already known, Janus says. It would have been better for us both, I think, if I could only lie, as Roman claims. But you also tell the truth, when it suited him, when he saw purpose to it. Janus nods. I was not good for Virgil. More truth, diamond hard and glittering sharp. He could never be sure of me, and he needed that. At the same time, I was familiar. To find the courage to leave, he needed a reason to risk the fear of the new. Oh, Thomas says again, a weak little whisper, and he thinks he's going to be sick. You... Indeed. He offers no details, and Thomas cannot bring himself to ask. The broad shape of the thing is enough. Janus had pushed. They sit in silence for some little time, until finally Janus stands, adjusts capelet, hat, and gloves. Are you satisfied, Thomas? This, too, is pointed. Be careful what you ask. You might just get an answer. Thomas nods numbly. Janus glances briefly at the board. 5 moves, he says. Keep practicing. Was it worth it? Thomas asks before he can sink out. Janus considers that. It worked, didn't it? A week passes, and Thomas goes out of his way to avoid Janus. He likes Janus, truthfully, genuinely and sincerely. He's a right bastard, and Thomas has no illusions about it. But he's interesting. He's smart and observant. Get him in the right mood, and he can be surprisingly playful. He's even a little bit, more like a giant mammoth holy shit who knew bit of a dork. He's exhausting. He makes Thomas think, and frankly, Thomas is kind of done with thinking just now, thoroughly and vehemently. He wants to be angry at Janus for hurting Virgil. Only he'd done it to help him, and hadn't Thomas done the same to Roman? The only difference is that Thomas had been able to keep Roman at the end of it. Can he judge Janus for sacrificing more? But what Thomas did to Roman had been necessary, right? Right? Maybe there had been a better way to handle things with Virgil. A kinder way, a gentler way. Thomas likes Janus, but he can be a vicious son of a... when he wants to. Does the end justify the means? It's a complicated question, and Thomas is so damn tired of those. It makes him fiercely glad to have the sides, to have that sounding board, those varied viewpoints. He'd never really considered how lonely it must be, making those hard calls all on your own. Janus had been alone with only his own nature, and Virgil had been alone with his. The two of them hadn't enough to temper each other, to blunt Janus's needlepoints and cushion Virgil's bristling. The sides needed each other. They were more than their aspects, but none of them were whole. Did Janus struggle with simplicity, like Logan struggled with emotion and Patton with the concept of gray? Had it ever even occurred to him to say, Virgil, I care about you, and that's why you need to leave? Thomas can't change what happened. He can't judge if it was necessary. But going forward, he's not sure if he can fix it, or if it would even be wise to try. He'd pressured Janus into telling him their history with the justification of the end results, and look how well that went. He's in over his head with this, out of his depth, and terribly afraid any attempt to interfere will drown them all. Maybe the best he can do is make sure neither of them are ever alone again. Then Virgil wouldn't have to guess at Janus's intentions with only his own anxiety to guide him. There will be others there to check in with, to help make deciphering this complex man a little easier. Janus wouldn't have to make the hard calls with only his strengths and knowledge and none of his weaknesses. There'd be others there to say, hey, maybe this doesn't need to be that hard after all. And maybe, with time, Janus and Virgil can build something new. It's a complicated situation, and complicated situations are never solved overnight. Like Patton with his hugs, Thomas can see he's been moving too fast for Janus. He thinks again of the fox in the boy. But Janus isn't a fox. Thomas has been reading up on snakes, and snakes are slow creatures. Their metabolism, their breathing, their heart rate, everything about them is slow. Maybe Thomas needs to take Janus at his own speed. Taming is a process, after all. He's complicated, and Thomas wouldn't have it any other way. Thomas is ready. He has a plan. Janus doesn't rise up like the others. He sinks down, but he manifests more like Virgil. Thomas isn't even sure if he needs to sink out, or if he just does it because the drama of it all makes for a more satisfying exit. "And here I thought I had frightened you off," was his greeting. Thomas offers him a hand. Janus stares at it for a long moment. Thomas waits. Janus's glove is soft and textured like suede. His grip is firm. "Hello," Thomas says. "I'm Thomas, and it's nice to finally meet you." Janus smiles. His real smile, awkward and secret and so very soft. "Hello, Thomas," he says. "I'm Janus. I've known you for a long time, but I can't say I'm impressed." Thomas yanks him close, knocks the hat aside to noogie him rather viciously, and grins when Janus squawks. It's a start. Quite literally. "So, could we just, not?" Thomas asks later. "You've been helping me, and I've been trying to help you, but can we just not for a while?" Janus blinks down at him. He looks a little tousled, which is nice, but he's not the panting wreck that Thomas is. It turns out wrestling a snake in the Florida hothouse is not precisely wise. "What did you have in mind?" Thomas heaves himself up off the living room floor. Janus takes pity and helps, hauling him up with rather insulting ease. Thomas heads straight for the kitchen and the promise of delicious, delicious water. "I don't know," he says between gulps. It's the entirety of his grand plan, to not plan anything at all. "I've been making a whole lot of assumptions about what you'd enjoy. Why don't you choose?" Janus blinks at him again. Something white and transparent slides across his yellow eye. Flash quick, easy to miss if you aren't looking closely. Nictitating membrane, Thomas thinks, and hides the smile with a swallow. "Tell me, Thomas," Janus says, "do you remember your ballroom dancing lessons?" Janus brings them to the stage. The same warped floorboards, the same curtain, that same undefinable smell. Janus looks around with a critical eye. "We'll need a little more room, I think." A sweep of his hand and the space opens up around them. "Ready?" They fumble at first, both of them moving to take the lead. Thomas laughs and readjusts, giving away easily. There's a swell of music, the sort of generic, forgettable stuff he remembers from his classes. "Foxtrot," Janus says. He starts off simple. Slow, slow, quick, quick. Thomas is rusty, and it shows. He'd taken ballroom dance for his physical elective in college and hadn't kept up with it, but he's surprised by how quickly it starts to come back to him. It helps that Janus proves to be a good guide, correcting for Thomas's mistakes without missing a beat. It's quiet for a time as Thomas focuses on not tripping them both. Slowly the dance picks up speed and smooths out. Janus dips his chin and the music shifts. Thomas stumbles. "Get the party started? Really?" "Pink is a queen and perfect for all occasions," Janus tells him seriously. "Ready for cha-cha?" Somehow Thomas finds that easier. Maybe all that practice doing the cha-cha slide at weddings is paying off. "This is fun," he says with some surprise. He'd forgotten that he really quite enjoyed dancing. He'd just never been particularly skilled at it, mediocre at best. And of course, that hadn't been good enough, had been excuse enough to simply stop. Just another thing Thomas had missed out on because he'd convinced himself you couldn't do something without the goal of winning at it. By the time they moved on to rumba, Thomas had started to relax, though he's not entirely sure what his hips are doing and if it could be qualified as dancing by even the most generous definition. Janus, on the other hand, sinuous was taking on a whole new meaning. "How are you so much better at this than I am?" It's a whine, but seriously. Janus swivels in a way that Thomas is fairly sure is not physically possible. "Practice," he says. "It's easier with a partner, but you can still do a lot without one." Hell. Look forward, Thomas reminds himself. Which reminds him. Maybe next time I can teach you how to actually play chess. It's Janus's turn to stumble. Thomas steadies him and gets him back on rhythm. And it's Thomas's turn to roll his eyes. "Yeah, no, I showed the board to Logan. 5 moves my ass." It had taken Logan all of 2 minutes to determine that the outcome of the game was far from assured. Black had been likely to win, but there were still too many variables to call checkmate. "Samba," Janus says, and now Thomas is just trying to keep up. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. I know the basics, Janus admits as he moves them both. I just haven't had much opportunity to apply it. You can imagine that Remus is not particularly interested. Thomas both giggles and grimaces at the idea of Remus sitting down for a sedate game of chess. He can all too clearly imagine the chaos that would result, and it only starts with the pieces murdering each other in hideous ways. But there are others, right? Thomas hesitates, trying to think of the right way to phrase it. In me? I want to meet them. When you're ready, Janus says. And before you ask, I don't know when that will be. You'll let me know. It's a non-answer, but it's honest. Still, Thomas can't stop himself from pressing, just a little. How many more? Janus sways around him, taps him lightly on the cheek, and his smirk is positively wicked. Oh, honey, you'll be meeting more of you until the day you die. That never stops. Tango. And this is where Janus really shines. The single spotlight glints bright off his scales as he moves. He glows, and Thomas can't possibly look away. Still, Janus says as he does something stupidly complex with his feet, you've been making strides of late. Dense as you are, you've even managed to surprise me from time to time. He dips Thomas back, low enough to make him squeak and grab tight, like with the idea that Roman needed to stop wallowing and start getting pissed. I'm sure Patton believes that anger is just the worst. His expression makes it clear what he thinks of that. I really thought I'd need to lead you by the hand on that one, but you got there on your own. Definite gold star, Thomas. He raises them back up, and Thomas is lightheaded enough that he almost misses it, and he's so glad he didn't, because it's delicious. So you admit you were helping me with Roman, he says, because I didn't hear anything hypothetical in there. Shut up and dance, Sanders. He spins Thomas out, and Thomas tilts his head back and laughs. The ceiling is a blur, but it's the fizzing pop that makes him dizzy. It fills him, overflows until he has to laugh because he's full. My God, he thinks, half prayer and half celebration. I love myself. Thank you all so much for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you like what you hear and you want to read more, you can find the link to the author and the fic in the description. If you want to check out other podfics I've done, you can click on the playlist linked on the screen. See you next time!